Hey,
Hey, do you see those people?
I'm adding them right now. Okay, we got, my computer.
Ashley Alden,
Hey,
Rovey Gutierrez, Michael Berl, Matt Alexander, and Jeremiah McElwain.
Mm,
Hi, Ashley.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well.
One more. Okay,
You have all 5 of them?
I need Mike. Michael's coming in right now.
Okay. Wonderful. And is Kirstin there?
No, not yet.
Okay. Okay. How's everyone doing today?
Good.
We have a crowd of people. How many people are there?
There's 37 in the waiting room right now.
Yeah, we have 170 that signed up, so we should have a good robust crowd today.
Let me know when you want me to. It's 12:01 and met everyone.
Yeah, we can start letting people in. Does everyone have what they need? You guys?
Here, I'm letting Kirstin in real quick.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Oh,
Good.
Kirstin, I'm gonna let everyone else in now.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I was frantically running around trying to find my computer charger. But
Totally fine. All right, I'm letting everyone in.
wow, there's a lot of fucking people on this call.
hello, it looks like everyone's coming in and joining us. We're going to give it a couple minutes just for, Zoom to catch up with everybody in the waiting room. I am Kirstin Ross, the Managing Director of SKU, and I'm so excited to be doing this town hall today. We got some phenomenal panelists and a whole lot of attendees. So clearly we have nailed it on the topic. So Michelle Breyer, our COO, is actually the creative one coming up with the information and content that we are excited to present to our SKU community. So Alyssa, I'm just going to wait for you to give me the go ahead to kick off this amazing panel that we have today. Okay.
Yeah, there's still people trickling in, but I think you're good to go.
All right. Well, with all of that being said, hello and welcome to everyone. Again, my name is Kirstin Ross. I'm the Managing Director of SKU, sitting right now in the beautiful sunny Austin weather. And we are here today to discuss emerging brands and the retailers that are showcasing and featuring these brands in their stores and on their platforms. So with that being said, I mean, let's just be honest. It has been such an interesting time for young brands, especially over this past year. It's been a challenge as everyone figures out how to navigate reaching new customers. There's been an enormous shift to buying online, whether e-commerce platforms or D2Cs. And yet we can't count retailers out, the traditional brick and mortars. And they have also revamped their experience and what sort of brands that they're putting on their shelves. I mean, I was just in Target this morning and it no longer looks like the Target I grew up with. And new places like Neighborhood Goods are completely redefining department stores. Thrive is to Amazon what Whole Foods was to your old local grocery store chain. But everyone's changing up the ways that they are engaging their customers and bringing products to their places, whether online or brick and mortar, to showcase these fresh young brands and all the innovation that's being seen in CPG. And so today we have a great lineup of people representing 5 retailers. We have Ashley Allen from Foxtrot, Jeremiah Mcelwee from Thrive Market, Rovey Gutierrez from HEB, Michael Berl from GoPuff, and Matt Alexander from Neighborhood Goods. And we are so thrilled to have you all. Thank you, everyone who's speaking. And so there's really no need to hear me talk anymore. And so before we do that, a couple of housekeeping items. We love engagement and questions. And after a year of probably too many Zoom calls, we've gotten casual on the questions and the question segment that usually followed at the end. So please drop any questions you have for the speakers in the chat feature. We will be monitoring them and we'll get to them as quickly as we can in this conversation. And then a little shout out and plug to the track that is wrapping up right now. We have 7 amazing brands that we brought to that program and are excited to be filming and getting the showcase day video and all their pitches ready to release here in the next couple of weeks. So with all of that being said, I would love to introduce Ashley Alden, who is the Senior Director of Merchandising for Foxtrot. So Foxtrot was a new concept for me. When I discovered it, I just had this brilliant, just an aha moment of like, this is going to be my new place to shop. But I'm not sure if everybody else is familiar with Foxtrot. So with that being said, Ashley, introduce us to yourself and to Foxtrot. And thank you so much for being a part of this really special panel.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So Foxtrot was started in Chicago. We're now in 3 cities, Dallas and DC. And really we're the modern evolution of a corner store is the quickest way to say it. We do a lot of different things at Foxtrot. So we've got 12 brick and mortar locations where you walk in, it kind of feels like a coffee shop and market combined. We've got a great third space, fantastic patios, which we're very excited about, you know, as it warms up here in Chicago. But half of our business is driven from e-commerce. So that's really comprised of on-demand delivery. So we deliver within each of our cities within 60 minutes, pick up in store, and we just recently launched nationwide shipping in a small way. So we do a lot of different things. And, you know, our motto at Foxtrot is to bring everyday joy to our customer through the convenience sector. And, you know, from the product perspective, what that looks like for us is you can walk in, get a really well-priced cup of coffee from a local roaster. You can get your daily Diet Coke. But, you know, where I focus most of my time on, and we really focus a lot of time on, is the trend discovery piece. So customers can walk in at any given time and find new products that they've never seen before from emerging brands, emerging trends, and local businesses. And, you know, from a product category standpoint, we have coffee, we've got prepared foods that are made in-house, grab-and-go beverages, wine, ice cream. We've got a small selection of gifts and kind of your pantry staples, all really focused in on, like I said, that everyday joy moment, whether that's nostalgic products or brands you've never seen before. I've been with Foxtrot for about 3 years, heading up the merchandising team, and came from the world of apparel, so brought kind of a different perspective to the world of CPG when I started. That's, you know, one of the reasons that we're focused in on bringing newness to our shelves all the time, you know, more often than a typical grocer. And our customers have definitely responded to that. I love supporting emerging brands and finding the latest trend. Definitely the most fun part of my job. Yeah, and I'm just excited to be here. Thanks so much.
Well, great. Well, just to follow up on that, what are your favorite trends that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, so it's all about adaptogenics and functional products. Tons of mushrooms in the marketplace that, you know, mushrooms are in everything, which has been really fun to be a part of. And we've really focused in a lot on sustainability as well. A lot of brands are coming out, you know, showcasing the ways that they're trying to improve the planet that we live in. And we've tried to get those on our shelves as well.
Well, that's fantastic. So there is a concept called the Up and Comers Awards. Tell us about that in Foxtrot. What does that mean, and what sort of companies have applied?
Yeah, so we just ran the Up and Comers Awards at the beginning of this year. It was really a way for us to seek out the latest and greatest brands in the food and beverage space. You know, our brand DNA has always included finding emerging brands and small makers. This was really just a way for us to formalize the process and add in some incentives for those brands. So the award winners had some cash prizes, had the opportunity to pitch their brands to one of our investors, Imaginary. So great incentives for the brands. And like I said, really just formalized what we were already doing. We had about 1,000 brands apply, which was really exciting. And, you know, they really came from all different walks of life and all different places. We had folks from across the country, and even somebody applied from Italy, which was great. And, you know, brands that are D2C, buzzworthy, and, you know, maybe are just looking to get into the retail space. We had brands that were pre-launch looking for advice or looking for a place to launch. And then we had some really great local brands, folks that started their companies during the pandemic kind of as a side hustle, and, you know, we're looking to grow even more. So, you know, really exciting to kind of go through everything that we got. We whittled down to some finalists and sent those through to some really great players within the industry, including Jenny from Jenny's Ice Cream, who chose the winners. And we brought on 35 new brands from those applicants. And it's been really exciting to work with them, you know, kind of show them the ropes of getting into the retail space. Most of those brands had never been in a retailer before, or maybe just, you know, a small mom and pop shop in their city. So it's been really fun to get it all live and work with those brands throughout the process.
That's so exciting, and congratulations to having so many applicants come in and expressing interest in getting on your platform. So how, outside of the Up and Comers Award, how else do you go about finding and discovering these brands to bring in to your shelves?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, we spend a lot of our time doing that. You know, we're living in a world of Instagram, so that's a big place that we look. I feel like everything that is fed to me on Instagram or any ad is a CPG product, which is really helpful. That, you know, I follow a lot of different newsletters, and in the world, you know, where we don't really have trade shows anymore, just, you know, inbounds come in that we explore at all times. The Up and Comers Awards really created more of a systematic approach for us for those inbounds that do come in. But we're constantly just on the lookout for something new and different, whether that's Instagram or competitive shopping online, et cetera. All of the folks on here, I'm always on their sites looking to see what they've got happening as well.
Well, that's great. So as you are talking with all these emerging brands, let's like really think about that. You know, some might have had some success on social media, you know, getting some D2C play. And as they're entering into the retail world, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I would say, you know, focus on their product first. We're always looking for a product that is in beautiful packaging, but is also delicious and has a reason for being on the shelves. We're a really small space at Foxtrot. Our stores are very small. I wish I had more shelf space, but you need to have a reason to be and a story to tell. Packaging is super important to us. Our customers definitely respond to that. So take the time to work through the product development, the packaging, and it's okay to you know, iterate. Everything doesn't have to be finalized, right? And then, you know, in terms of other advice beyond the product, I would say be open to working with distributors. It's always easier for retailers to work with distributors, or be willing to take advice on some of the feedback that we've given. We've had brands come to us, you know, with a great product, but maybe a packaging that didn't feel like a fit on our shelves. They've reworked it and come back, and, you know, we've had a lot of success there. Say nothing is final when you're an emerging brand, and, you know, take as much advice from the retailers as you can.
That's amazing. Well, Thank you so much for that. We're going to open it up to a bigger conversation later, but I'm excited to have Foxtrot on my radar. I'm going to start
Thanks so much.
shopping now. And I always love a good Midwestern little accent that I can detect. I'm from Minneapolis. So definitely loved hearing that. So thank you so much, Ashley.
Yeah,
Now,
thank you.
now I'm going to turn it over to somebody who is very near and dear to the CPG community, Jeremiah Mcelwee from Thrive Market. He is the CMO, and we are so excited to have you. Thank you so much, Jeremiah, for joining us.
It's good.
So, you know, I feel like Thrive has been on my radar for at least 5, 6, maybe 5 years. But for anyone maybe in the audience who isn't familiar with Thrive, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Your background's really interesting, as is what you're doing at Thrive.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, number one, and thanks for your kind words. Great to be here and be with the community here. But yeah, on a personal level, simply put, I'm a natural products lifer. So I'm heading into my 28th year in the space and have worn just about every hat imaginable, from working the health food store aisles to managing brands, and then working with farmers and supply chain, and then switched teams a couple of times. So it was in brick and mortar with Whole Foods for a number of years, and then most recently helped launch Thrive Market, going on 7 years in June, which is incredible. We still call ourselves a startup, but it's starting to feel like we're a teenager kind of thing. But simply put, I mean, the best way to describe Thrive, I loved Ashley's description of Foxtrot, by the way. That was like a really cool summary. But on our side, we always say we're kind of like Costco meets Whole Foods online. So we're a membership model. We try to be like the 21st century cooperative model, if you will. So for every paid member that joins, we donate or give away a free membership to a lower income family, teacher, military veteran, or first responder. And our social mission is really just improving access to healthier products, whether that's food or non-food. So we sell all personal care, nutritional supplements, home goods, but also all of the center store grocery items and meat and seafood, as well as organic and sustainable wines. So, and constantly adding new categories to the mix. So the idea is you pay to be a member, and then you save lots of money. And we also give away memberships. And in addition, we just really focus on sustainability. So we're carbon neutral, we're zero waste out of our fulfillment centers. And then the last thing I would say is we're just kind of addicted to philanthropy. So we never say no to any cause. Anytime there's been a recent natural disaster or anything happening around the country, we're the first to send trucks, to volunteer, to work with our vendor community, our supplier community, to reach out and try to get food there, water there, whatever the case may be. And then in the case of COVID-19, we've raised over $1.5 million for COVID-19 relief funds, and we've been giving away grocery stipends for the past year plus to families in need, whether they were displaced from their jobs or just hit really hard on the health side. So it's just kind of who we are, and it's part of our DNA, and that's the place we like to live in.
I love it. Keep on doing all this great work in the world. So let's talk about the brands that are featured on Thrive Market. You have a few different mixes, right? You've got some really good mainstays, brands we all know and love. You've got a great white label angle to some of the Thrive products that are out there, but you also showcase emerging brands. How do you select them? And I'm just curious, after 7 years, what sort of trends or data metrics are you using to really evaluate these brands as you bring them online?
Yeah, I mean, it's a multi-pronged question, I guess you could say. I mean, there's certainly, Ashley covered a lot of the same data points as us, and there's not a ton of mystery there, right? Like we're constantly looking at syndicated data. We're constantly paying attention to all social media platforms, as well as all the inbound from trade publications and different trade groups like New Hope and PLMA and, several others. And then in addition, we have a whole team of category managers and actually product innovators. So on the category management side, those are the folks finding the new and emerging brands, and we get a ton of inbound. We actually have a section on our site, brand-partnerships, where people can submit their products and brands. And so we get a ton of inbound that way, but we also, like probably many of my colleagues here, we hire people who just love what they do and they're passionate about food, they're passionate about products, they're living it and breathing it. So for them, it's not uncommon in our company to, if I open my computer right now, see all kinds of Slack threads with, have you seen this brand? This is so cool. Look at this. That's just kind of where we live as a team. And then on the product innovator side, they're constantly just out there pushing the envelope of, you mentioned our private label brand, but they're constantly looking to figure out how we can clean up products, how we can make products better, how we can solve good old fashioned retail challenges, right? Like poor margins or poor price points or competitive pressure. Like how do we solve for those things that we're all facing? And so it's that balance of finding the new and creating the new. But to answer your question about how we identify the trends, I mean, we always start with our members, right? Like our members tell us immediately what they want. And for me, having worn both hats, being on the brick and mortar side and now in the digital space, that's probably been the most exciting part, has just been the instant data that we get from our members. And we can see what they're searching for and we don't have, or what they're asking for. We also are totally vertical in our org. So we control the whole experience from end to end. And we have direct communication with our member services team every day, telling us like, hey, people are asking for this, like we need more of that. And whether that's a brand or whether that's a special diet or whether that's a frustration with an ingredient, we have really vocal members, and that's who we're here to serve. So that's the first touch point. And then beyond that, it's just really leaning into special diet trends, which have been a huge win for us. We learned early on that the food tribes are a big part of our membership base. So paleo, vegan, gluten-free, keto, Whole30, low FODMAP, all of these diet trends, people come to our site and they sort on these different filters that we have on the site, and it makes it really easy to shop. And so we get a lot of that kind of food tribe love, and people coming in really looking for a simple way to find something that maybe their doctor or their nutritionist recommended. They switch to that diet, and just trying to make it easy for our members. So.
Great. I love the search feature. I use it all the time. So thank you so much for staying true and consistent to that and listening to the members on the Thrive community. So quick question on margins. This is coming in from the audience. You mentioned that you really are looking at what these companies' margins are. What are you looking for? And I'm sure it depends on the product category. And are there any other kind of key aspects from like a business model perspective that you look at when you're vetting these companies?
I mean, definitely you hit the nail on the head. I think any retailer on the phone or anyone you talk to would tell you it's really hard to give a number, because we're looking at each category individually, and we're really trying to make sure we can be profitable within the category while also being competitive. And our platform is certainly geared around delivering value to our members. So we view it as, really delivering a great price and a great value for the level of quality that our members are getting. So for us, it's a combination of that margin pressure, like we all have it. It's just a reality of doing business, but also like making sure there's true value and differentiation. I think you mentioned it, or it was mentioned earlier, like you actually summed it up. I'm going to steal that line, by the way, that you used, which is like, we're like the Whole Foods to Amazon is like Whole Foods was to some of the big guys back in the day. And it's so true in our case. And we are not going to compete. Like we're a mid-sized speedboat, and the Whole Foods and Walmarts and Targets of the world are these giant cruise ships, and we're not able to compete on commoditized goods, right? So for us, like we have to offer better value, better quality, a better experience for our members. And that's a huge factor for us as we're looking at brands. So we're going to ask those hard questions, right? Like we're going to ask the question of, where are you being distributed? What's your long-term growth plan? Like, how are you going to support us versus, if you have a plan to go into Walmart, like what's that mean for your price points? How are you going to manage that? And how can we long-term win with your brand and make it win-win for both sides and continue to grow together, which is always that's where the magic happens. So.
I mean, healthy partnerships are always the best place, right? So the question was specifically around non-alcoholic beverages. But that being said, if a company was unsure where their margins stood based on kind of the industry standard, how would they find out that information?
You know, for us, I mean, we try to be as transparent as we can once we're engaged, right? So like on a call like this, I can't broadcast what the number is, right? But if we're interested in your product and you're interested in us and we're having those conversations, we have nothing to hide. Like we're going to share it with you and tell you like, here's where we stand, here's where we need to be. And frankly, like we'll share with you too, you know, like here's the landscape and here's where we're seeing your product. And, you know, and we have that dialogue so that we can really be transparent together. I always say about myself, but also to our team, like we're not very good at poker. Like we'd rather play open hand blackjack and just like share and hopefully we all win at the end of the day. And instead of like, you guess where you need to be. So I think for us, and, you know, Ashley also alluded to it, it starts with a product we love, right? It starts with something that we're passionate about and like we think our members will love. And if we can get over those hurdles and we get over our ingredient standards and we're all aligned that like, wow, your product fits perfectly, we see demand, we want to work together, then, you know, there's no more secrets. It's like, here's where we need to be and here's why, and here's our profitability goals. So.
Well, you sound like a very friendly, warm place for a young brand to land as they, you know, are exploring what they need to be doing as a growing business. I'm curious, what are the benefits of brands working with Thrive Market? Maybe it's just me. I almost view it as a stamp of approval on a product if it is being offered on Thrive, a bit like Whole Foods. But I'm just curious, what do you guys do that's so special and different to help these emerging brands?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thanks for saying that. I mean, we definitely have high quality standards. So we hear that from brands all the time. And like, we are, again, like ultimately at the end of the day, it is what our members desire most. And that's where we're going to lean in. So I think for us, we look at it as, how do we make it win-win for our brands? We're going to be honest. And like, sometimes that's painful, right? Like we'll tell you like, hey, this isn't a good fit for us right now, or we tried this in the past and it didn't really work, or here's where we need to go in the future. But I think the biggest benefit that I've seen, especially having lived on both sides of the desk, is that we're able to offer, sorry, this is Zoom world. I have somebody at my door to fix a glass pane. So welcome to 2021. No, the biggest benefit I've seen is that D2C model and being able to cut out the middleman. I mean, I lived in brick and mortar world for a long time, and there's distributors, there's brokers, there's a lot of touch points, and we own our own fulfillment centers. We're able to bring products into our fulfillment centers. We're able to deliver them directly to our customers, which allows us to cut out layers of costs, right? And reduce our carbon footprint. And so we're able to tell those stories. I would say the last benefit to the brands is we have millions of people on our email list, and we also have millions of people following us on social. So we're able to really broadcast out your story and take the time to deep dive. Like, as you all know, being in the health food stores or being in brick and mortar, like you have a minute, a second, 10 seconds or less to tell stories of brands. And online you have kind of an endless platform of like blog posts and social stories. And so you can really deep dive more into that. And for me, as someone who loves products and loves supply chain stories, that's the stuff I kind of geek out on. That's a benefit for brands. So.
I love it. Okay, so one specific question to Thrive Market, but for all of our panelists, I'd love for you to throw in the chat feature how companies can submit products to you. So with all that being said, one last specific question to Thrive. Are you looking at adding any more perishable or frozen products to the Thrive offering?
We are in the process of expanding frozen pretty aggressively. So we just this past weekend added some super exciting products with Beyond Meat that we've been working on for over a year. So they're actually prepared meals, frozen prepared meals. 5 different SKUs there. We'll be adding a whole bunch of plant-based meat alternatives later this month, and then over the summer, which is literally the worst time to launch frozen, by the way. We know this, but just such is life when you're working with tech and trying to get things to the finish line. We'll be launching dozens of products, and that experience will continue to accelerate into the fall. And so that's really exciting. On the perishable side, that's a little trickier. So we, long-term plans, it's definitely in the cards, but short-term, probably not for the next 12 to 18 months. So we're going to lean into frozen, continue to expand the other categories, but perishable refrigerated products probably be a longer tail on that one.
All right. You just wanted to create an interesting supply chain logistics problem to solve by launching frozen in the summer. So I see how you are.
Yeah. We're like, let's get the worst out of the way first. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And just to make sure that everybody in Texas is ordering a lot of frozen just to make your life better. No, thank you so much, Jeremiah. One last question. How do you feel about functional mushroom supplements or the supplement space?
Ashley,
do you like mushrooms?
I'm a huge mushroom person. I took some this morning. So take them almost every day in multiple formats, to Ashley's point. So huge fan. We're working on some innovative products too. So I'm fortunate, like probably my colleagues here, get lots of samples to try. And but yeah, I think that actually we've seen a huge uptick in hydration too. I think with just people being active and trying to stay hydrated, and so that's been a huge category that we've seen emerge recently too, just natural hydration.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jeremiah. And I see the chat feature going with people, our panelists putting in the best point of contact for reaching these retailers. So thank you so much. And now we're going to move on to a tried and true retailer. We've got Rovey here with HEB. He's a sourcing manager. And HEB, like if you grow up in Texas, my 2-year-old knows to point to an HEB sign and call it out, right? Rovey, what is HEB? How did it become this retailer that is so loved by the community? What's the special sauce there?
Wow, that's a loaded question. There's so many things. The company's been around for over 115 years already. So, it's got its roots in Texas, way deep down there. And like you said, there's nobody if you grew up in Texas, what grocery store is grown to HEB. Right. But definitely, and now even in the last 24 years ago, when we opened our first stores in Mexico, that culture, that customer down there is also trying to, or also getting the benefit of the history and the culture that we developed in Texas. If you're familiar with that market down there and in the retail industry down there, HEB went and did a little bit of shaking around the industry. There's a lot of things that the Mexico retail industry has changed in general because HEB came to that market. Little things that you wouldn't even notice now, but back then, a quick example would be our baggers. In Mexico, if you're familiar with that industry, it used to be the baggers used to work for tips. The little kids that would, bag your groceries and took them to your car, they used to be tips. When, Charles and Howard Budd went down there and says, that's no way. If you're working in our stores, you're a partner. You deserve to wear the uniform. You deserve to have the benefits, and you're going to be a partner. So they did that. And now every retailer does the same thing. Things from that you didn't even think about before, like wider aisles and just overall better customer service and understanding who your customer is and really going after that local vibe and trying to really understand what is it that our customers looking for in every aspect of the business, from service to the products to the value that we bring to their consumers and the different formats that we have for the different shopping experiences. So yeah, there's so many things that you can go into, and one of the biggest ones has also been community service. We like to, just like Jeremiah mentioned, we're always involved in pretty much any situation that there's needed, whether it be hurricanes or natural disasters or COVID relief or you name it. And we're always there to, and even outside of state, a lot of people, and HEB doesn't like to mention a lot of these things, but even we participate in outside our own state, helping other retailing partners across the country. So definitely a lot of areas, but the owners of this company, the leaders of this company, they understand that they really have to invest in people. It's the most important thing, in our customers, and they're going to pay it back. They're going to come to our stores. They're going to come back all the time. And in Texas, I mean, if you grew up in Texas, you don't say I'm going to go grocery shopping. You can say I'm going to HEB.
Right.
So that's the goal of our business, right? To have that consumer or that customer to be just as loyal to them as they are to us.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. I mean, it resonates with the customers here. And for this very long history of operations, you haven't gotten stale as an organization. You have great presence for emerging brands. I think the quest for Texas best is well known here. So let's talk about what that is and how it has helped HEB change up their shift of products that they're offering their customers. So quest for Texas best, and why are you so committed to bringing in these young brands to HEB?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And first of all, thank you everybody for having us here as well. And just a little bit of history on me. My name is, again, Rovey Gutierrez. I'm the sourcing manager for HEB. I've been with this company for about 15 years now, in both sourcing and buying roles, different categories, a lot of perishable. I also bought water for HEB for a couple of years. So I've been around this side of the desk for a while now, for the last 15 years. But before that, I was on the other side of the desk. So I've been in a lot of the situations that have to be with the development part and the sales aspect of it. So I understand both sides of the desk fairly well. And going to your question on Quest for Texas Best, Quest for Texas Best started basically 8 years ago, and it was when we realized we needed to have a campaign or some sort of program to highlight even more. I think a lot of people had been or are familiar with our commercials that we have, our advertising campaign where we call out, this is the strawberry department at HEB, or this is the whatever at HEB department. And I think the customers really grabbed onto that and understood and liked the local aspect of that campaign. But we wanted to do something even more sniper approach and target brands and products that we typically wouldn't have access to. So the way we did that was by starting Quest for Texas Best, which is basically a competition. And you guys are probably all familiar with Shark Tank, and it's a very similar format. What we do is we have a submission time period in February, right around, usually kicks off, in normal years, right around Super Bowl. And it lasts for about a 6-week period. And what it is just a submission process where you as a company, your product has to be made in Texas, has to be manufactured in Texas. Once you submit your product, you basically go through a vetting process, and the commitment to all these suppliers that submit is that we will be reviewing your product. It doesn't matter if it's something as small as something you're making in your kitchen to something where you already have a facility. We will review your product, and our goal is to hopefully give everybody as much feedback as we can. But the goal is to basically pick suppliers from there for a competition that's done later in the year, where we bring in those suppliers, those products, and they present their products in front of a panel of judges that's made up from local celebrities, food writers, HEB leadership, and they basically have a shot at winning a prize money. And obviously the bigger opportunity would be to be on the shelves at HEB. Over the years, we probably vetted over 5,000 products since its inception back in 8 years ago. And out of those 5,000 products, we probably brought in about 750 or so. This year we are we got around 500, close to 600 applicants. And last year we had about 700 applicants. So last year, because it was the first year we had to postpone because of COVID, we rolled those applicants up. So this year we had the task of reviewing almost 1,300 applicants. So it's, again, we have basically 6 weeks to vet and review all those applications, products. We have the samples of the companies, call them and find out as much as we can to narrow it down to the products that we feel have a true shot. Now, that being said, the contest is really a way for us to have access to those suppliers, because, if you do the math, there's only 20 suppliers that go into the competition, into the finals, but we've selected over 750 items. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you don't make it to this finals competition that we won't look at your product or even bring in your product. In fact, I've been involved with so many items that never were selected for part of the competition, but because we saw opportunity with them, we saw something that we liked, we worked with those suppliers to get them to a point where they were retail ready. So that's basically what the program is. Over the years, last 3 years or so, we've started awarding, recognizing suppliers that have had over $1 million in sales. And today we've had, we do this by presenting them with a $1 million belt buckle. And we've had 26 suppliers, I believe, that have hit the $1 million mark in sales as part of this competition. So that's very exciting, extremely rewarding to see some of these products and suppliers go to an H-E-B store and see their product on the shelf for the first time. There's some amazing videos on social media of people going through that experience, and it's heartwarming. It's also very rewarding personally to see that process happen. And so, yeah, that's basically what Quest for Texas Best is. And, again, pretty much the biggest requirement is that the product has to be made in Texas, or the company has to be, Texas.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for that. And I mean, you're really helping these emerging brands really do something in their own backyard and winning their customer base. So I'm curious, and we can talk Quest for Texas Best or a little bit more macro level. For CPG startups that want to get into H-E-B, what is your advice to having their products or the brand really stand out when they're one of a sea of companies that are applying and trying to, get on that coveted store shelf?
I mean, that's the question. That's really the question, right? What is it that we're looking for, right? As a person on this side of the desk, as a buyer, a sourcing manager, yes, we look at all the things that Jeremiah and Ashley mentioned, the trends, the products, the uniqueness and distinctive items and everything. But if you're in the process of trying to develop one of those products, you have to answer the question. You have to answer a question. If you have your product and you go to the shelf, what is it that you're bringing? What question am I answering? Am I providing better value? Am I providing something that's not there, a trend? Am I providing a better packaging? Am I providing what is it that I'm doing? What question am I answering? Because I can promise you, I had a customer, or actually a discussion that I had yesterday with a supplier that submitted to Quest for Texas Best. And I asked the question, who are your competitors? He says, well, nobody's my competitor. I'm like, I promise you that you have a competitor. Your product, somebody's buying something that now is going to stop buying that to go buy your product. So you have a competitor. Just because you don't see it, you have a competitor. I mean, for example, for us, we look at Home Depot as competitors. They sell bleach. They sell a lot of the same products that we sell at H-E-B. So we got to look at them as competitors as well. We look at 7-Eleven as our competitors because we want you to buy that soda at our stores. We don't want you to buy it at 7-Eleven, right? I mean, that's just business. So you have to be able to answer that question. What is it that you're bringing to the table with your product? Where is that business growth going to come to? And where is that buyer going to see the benefit of bringing your product into the shelf? So it's a loaded question. It may be a different answer for everybody, for depending on your product and your state and the stage of your product or your company life, right? Because there are some companies that are literally in in diapers. There's some that are already learning to walk. There's some that are already teenagers, and some that are already old, geezers out there, right? And so, which part of your life of that product do you belong, right? So answer, what question am I answering? That's what you have to answer.
Well, thank you so much for that. And I think that's just wise wisdom for CPG in general to always be able to answer. It is, what does your customer need that they are now going to be seeking your product or buying your brand? And you're right, knowing your competition and really understanding that need that you're fulfilling as a product is so important to be able to articulate. And that's what you as a buyer wants to hear, because you're trying to get into your customers' minds, I'm sure, all the time to make sure that what you're putting on the shelves meets what their demands are. So great words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Rovey, for joining us today and telling us all about the wonderful HEB. And so if anybody on the audience isn't in Texas or hasn't driven through Texas, you are now going to just start hearing HEB all the time. And if you ever land in Texas, you'll drive by at least 6 of them on your way to whatever the destination is. So thank you so much for that. Now we're going to go back to a new upcoming fresh innovative company. We have Michael Berl, who is the head of regional partnerships with GoPuff. So Michael, turning it on over to you. I mean, GoPuff was a new concept for me. So I'd love to hear about what you're doing in the delivery space, especially now that my overarching customer need is making sure everything lands on my doorstep that is possible to land on my doorstep. So Michael, thanks so much for being here with us today. Tell us about GoPuff.
Sure. Well, we can certainly help get food and products onto your doorstep. That's what we do best. And again, just thanks for having this panel. I think it's been super interesting hearing all the different brands and folks talk about, what they're passionate about, and love having all that come together. So appreciate including us in this as well. I'm based here in Austin too. So definitely familiar with HEB and all the other brands as well. Just a little bit of background on GoPuff, since a lot of people still haven't heard about it. We've really created a new instant needs category. And what that is getting products to customers in 15 to 30 minutes. So for anybody that's used GoPuff, it's one of those things that you don't really understand how fast something can arrive to your doorstep until you've tried it. It's not 2 hours, it's not a couple of days. It's really, really that kind of instant need. So going back, GoPuff actually started about 8 years ago. Our co-founders were 2 college students that were kind of tired of making runs for their friends to pick up grocery store, convenience store items, and found inefficiencies in that market and started developing this app. We've kind of been under the radar over the last 8 years. I'm still not quite sure how. We're pretty popular in places like Philadelphia, where our headquarters is, Boston and Chicago, and we really were targeting college towns initially. So I think people in metros maybe haven't heard about it, even though we actually cover 650 cities. We acquired Bevmo last year in California. So we now have 400 what we call micro fulfillment centers, which are basically smaller warehouses within metros. And that's what allows us to achieve this really fast 15 to 30 minute delivery. The way that GoPuff set up is we work pretty much like a wholesaler. So we purchase inventory, we sell it retail, we store it, and we have drivers that make those deliveries. So we do have vertical integration, which kind of sets us apart. And a lot of our locations are open 24/7 or close to it. So, when you're thinking about use cases, yes, I might run to the market to pick up something at 6 o'clock or at 10 a.m. But if I have a craving for something at 10 p.m. or midnight, or I just need something super fast, that's when people would, come to GoPuff. And just a little bit of background too for myself. So I started in November. Quite a few years ago, I had a gluten-free food business based in Manhattan, but we had national distribution. So, I was on the side trying to sell into Whole Foods, Zena DeLuca, airline caterers. So, part of why I was super excited to join the team is I've been on that side of the equation, and I really want to help brands that are emerging and really looking to grow their footprint and grow their business to be an opportunity for them to really expand on our platform and collaborate and partner together. So my background is very much on the partnership side of things.
Wonderful. I love hearing about new delivery options because oftentimes you go on, the Instacart or the, Amazon Prime delivery, and they're telling me it's coming in 2 days. And I'm like, that's really not helping me out with dinner tonight. So glad there's another option. I'm going to start using you.
Yeah.
So talk about how emerging brands in the CPG scene interact with GoPuff and how it fits into your overall company strategy.
Sure. We're really big on supporting local communities and local brands and emerging brands as well. And my team, we now have folks that are covering multiple regions throughout the country and are really kind of hunting for these types of brands. So, I know that we've heard some ideas for where people are getting, Instagram feeds and other stuff like that. That's certainly one way that we spot brands as well. But the team's just super passionate about this space. So we're constantly sharing ideas, trying new products, trying new things, and really starting to see a lot of these brands that join our platform start to take off. And, some of them have pretty quickly rolled out nationally with us, which is really exciting. And again, our focus is really on the partnership aspect versus just kind of buying a product, having it sit on shelves and customers buy it. We're looking at marketing collaborations, some really like innovative and fun promotions that we do. We just did like a giveaway with Yeti and a bunch of the local awesome brands here, which was super fun. So, it's really about trying to figure out ways to get these brands and their products in front of customers in that super fast delivery time, 15 minutes, and find really great innovative ways to accomplish that. And, we saw, especially over COVID too, I think we all probably did, that there was that consumer shift pretty drastically. And one of the things that I really liked about GoPuff too is, pretty quickly we jumped in and saw a lot of these businesses that have bricks and mortar locations, but people couldn't come to those places, whether it's like a donut shop, a cookie place, whatever it might be. So we were able to really help some of those businesses still reach their customers and potentially even grow that footprint because of the way our fulfillment centers are spread throughout cities. So, it'll be interesting to see how that continues to evolve over time as consumer behaviors shifted. But, we definitely focus a lot in that area.
That's amazing. So let's stay on the topic of consumer behaviors. What are trends that you're watching or just general thoughts on consumers being driven to emerging brands?
Sure. I think even before COVID, we saw a bigger and bigger shift, whether it's because of age demographics or whatever that might be, but toward local, toward supporting the community, supporting emerging brands. And then I think COVID just accelerated that a lot because people saw their favorite brands struggling and wanted to reach out and support them. So, we've been really excited to be a part of that outreach. One of the things that's been super interesting about GoPuff too is as people start to get more used to this on-demand delivery, whatever that looks like, on GoPuff, people aren't necessarily doing their grocery shopping on our platform. So they might not buy, a 12 pack or bulk sizes of things, but they know that they can buy it 2 times a week or 3 times a week. So we're seeing that order frequency is super high, which is kind of an interesting dynamic that we really haven't seen in consumer behavior previously, again, because of delivery times. And overall too, I think the better for you category is growing everywhere, which I love. And I think it's fantastic that people are starting to be more mindful about, still indulging a little bit and getting great tasting flavors and cool brands and cool flavor profiles, but choosing some brands that have better ingredients, cleaner ingredients. And we're definitely seeking those types of brands as well.
That's awesome. And let's be honest, over this last year, we've all had way more time to be on social media and have Instagram and everything else tell us all these new emerging products.
Totally.
Now
Yeah.
Have all over our house. So talking about the actual relationship that you're developing with the brands and the products that you bring on board, what are some key things you're looking for? What's a good fit? What are some red flags that aren't going to be working within your business model and strategy?
Sure. There really aren't any red flags. I think what's really interesting about our stage of kind of hyper growth I was at Uber as well before for about 5 years on the business development side, again, focusing on partnerships. So I feel like GoPuff is at that kind of like rocket ship pivotal moment where we're really starting to take off and have really strong growth. So we're going to be expanding categories. We're going to be expanding the types of brands and offerings we have a lot over the coming year, which is super exciting. I think for where our team's focused and where we see a lot of success is brands that are really engaged in the process. Again, like working together on marketing partnerships, outreach, collaborating a lot on where they already find success, where they're trying to break into, and see how we can augment and support each other. And even, like direct to consumer brands are great and have taken off a ton. And for some of those, the question is kind of like, hey, well, if somebody, I definitely have direct to consumer brands that I run out, right? And I'm waiting for my subscription to arrive or whatever that is. If I can supplement that with a fast 15-minute delivery off GoPuff, it's a win for me. It's a win for that brand. And it doesn't necessarily like cancel out my subscription. It augments it. It keeps that flow. So I think there's a pretty strong breadth of brands that we'll take a look at. Overall, I think quality ingredients is super important. Having a lot of the brands that are trending these days and emerging have that kind of like fun, engaging brand profile. Social presence is super important for all of this, as well as everybody's migrated even more to looking at that. And I think a strong ethos too is really great, and something we look at, whether that's around sustainability or giving back to the community, or just promoting healthier options and healthier ingredients too.
I love it. Okay, great question from the audience. What are the most popular product categories on GoPuff?
So we sell a ton of ice cream. We're the #1 online retailer for Ben & Jerry's. We are also the #1 retailer for White Claw. Why those necessarily go hand in hand, I'm not quite sure.
Targeting college towns, I think.
Yeah, sounds like a fun night, right? But again, like Ben & Jerry's, which is a great brand, it's been around for a really long time. But we're also working with brands like Jenny's, Nadamu, more of these emerging brands to kind of round out the product assortment. So we have a little bit more of that curated or artisanal brand as well. We do sell a lot more on the better for you category as well. Snacks are really big. Again, it's that kind of thing that you might want to have in that 15 to 30 minute time frame. Prepped meals is growing a lot on our platform as well. We're actively looking for more brands and markets to add on that front too.
Wonderful. Well, consider yourself having a new member to your GoPuff Austin community. Thank you so much for telling us about what you're doing. And I think earlier I saw you drop in the chat how products can get in touch with you and brands for submittal to your platform. So
yeah, just shoot me a note. We have an awesome team. I think they're all on the call. They said that they were going to watch. So we have great folks to work with. So just reach out. We'd love to chat with people.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Michael. And now we're going to switch over to a store that might be causing my credit card a little trouble these days. We have Matt Alexander, who is the co-founder and CEO of Neighborhood Goods. So if people have not been to a Neighborhood Goods, you're missing out. It is a complete renovation of a department store, and it has such well curated brands within it. I'm a huge fan. But Matt, I'd love to turn it over to you just to talk a bit about Neighborhood Goods and what you are doing to really innovate a department store, which, started feeling a little stale.
Yeah, so Neighborhood Goods, we just describe it as a new type of department store, and it certainly is, depending on your perspective, right? But in many ways, it's also quite an inaccurate way of thinking about what we do, but it creates sort of a useful expectational framework as what you might find inside the stores. So it's our staff, fixed physical, sort of larger format spaces. You'll come across most major sort of product categories, from apparel to beauty and wellness and kids and home and otherwise. And it's all our staff and it's all our aesthetic. So it presents as something quite similar to a department store, but sort of behind the scenes, operates on a radically different financial model than would be typical. So we don't buy at wholesale. Most brands pay us a fixed fee to be in the space, and then we also take a percentage of sales. Some brands are in there purely for capturing data. So we capture demographics, traffic, email, and otherwise, as and when you're sort of moving around the space and interacting with all these different companies. And then the brands we feature rotate in and out on a much more sort of aggressive basis than what you would typically expect. So rather than operating on a seasonal format, instead, we have this sort of ever-changing landscape of relatively modern and progressive brands. So it's anything from direct-to-consumer brands that have never been in fixed physical retail before, or well-established brands that are looking to do something really interesting and playful, and many others that are coming in to do anything from exclusives to collaborations and otherwise. So, you know, we're relatively young. We opened our first location in just outside Dallas in Plano in November 2018. We opened in New York in December 2019, and then we opened in Austin for less than 24 hours last March. But since reopened, of course, we're also available online and otherwise. And so we work with anything from Stadium Goods, Buck Mason, Hims, Draper James, Tarshan, Aesop, Maud, Dollar Shave Club. For many of them, we were their first ever physical. For a lot of them, they came in to be with us for, you know, as little as 3 months and have ended up being with us for much more, like 2 years in some instances. And each of the locations is quite radically different. So rather than just having a one-size-fits-all approach to each of our spaces, instead, they're quite well localized. In addition to that, we also have our own restaurants in the spaces. In a more normal sort of time, we used to host 2 to 3 events per week in those spaces, anything from product launches to exercise classes with groups like Equinox to Serena Williams, who came and launched a new size-inclusive line with us a couple of weeks after we opened back in 2018. So relatively young. This was sort of a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For some people, we're a real estate company. For others, we're, you know, a department store. For others, we're a marketing company. So we're lots of different things, and really just sort of, you know, trying to sort of not be the shiniest object in the room, but instead to sort of be something that really trades in the currency of relevance for the consumer, right? That really sort of resonates on a much more sort of localized and personalized basis in a lot of really interesting different markets.
Yeah, I love your description, because as a consumer, I really viewed it as one way, but now I understand all of these different areas that you can really fill for the type of individuals and companies and brands that are being involved. So SKU has had a fun experience being part of your marketplace that's being built out, showcasing some SKU brands. So I've gotten to work with your team a bit over the last few months, and it has been fantastic from a brand perspective, the amount of insight and data points you get back. So kind of speaking from like the marketing hat that you said you put on for brands, as a customer in neighborhood goods, your salespeople are fantastic about asking some really great questions like, oh, have you heard of this brand before? Like, what did you like about it? And they're gathering a ton of information. Now, working with neighborhood goods, you're passing a lot of that information back to the brands themselves. Can you just talk through about that whole model and that philosophy and flow of information?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it really just comes down to, you know, if you talk to the founder of a direct-to-consumer brand, a lot of them recognize the importance and utility of physical retail, right? Like for many of them, and certainly for a lot of the larger ones today, there's come a recognition that if you're sort of in the apparel sort of space or roughly adjacent to it, that if you're direct consumer, that it's not entirely sustainable or reasonable to reach profitability without getting into some form of physical. And so for a lot of them, they don't have margins to support traditional wholesale, and they really operate on a different sort of spectrum of needs. And they also have a much more diverse array of goals, right? So for some of them, it's more about customer acquisition. For others, it's more about raw sales and otherwise. But if you talk to those founders and you talk about physical retail, you know, a lot of them want to open pop-ups and would mostly do it on a coastal sort of basis, you know, open in all the obvious parts of LA, all the obvious parts of New York, and they'll do fine, right? But they don't get much back, and it's kind of a surprise for a lot of them, right? You don't get any traffic, any real insight beyond just what you can capture anecdotally inside the space and otherwise. And so we set about just thinking about what ought to be table stakes and what you would see to be table stakes for a space if you were going to get into it, and what would be useful for you to learn depending on your various goals, right? So we've had brands like Stadium Goods who've come in, and it's really about having a limited assortment and then rotating it very aggressively. And so for them, the founders at Stadium Goods were texting with our staff, right? And really getting a sense of what people were talking about in and around that space. Then we also have obviously a huge amount of data around like the general age and gender of people going into a given area, what they're purchasing, what those habits look like, which products are doing particularly well, which aren't, and how we can adapt to that in relative real time. And then you can look at just general opportunities in and around the space, just as you would, you know, a website where you can think about, you know, okay, well, men in their 30s walk in and turn left, whereas women in their 30s walk in and turn right. How do we get everyone in their 30s to walk in and turn left? And like, how can you think about how best to sort of shape that journey in a way that's going to best yield the most interesting stories and most compelling interaction, right? So you also think about it on behalf of these brands where it's about piloting messaging for many of them. So we have Tonal, for example, who we've become their most efficient customer acquisition channel, and you know, they're growing like crazy elsewhere, but like they opened up with us as a small experiment in Plano. They've just been doing disproportionately well with us, and for them it's very much a mechanism in storytelling and understanding and testing different ways of speaking to people and articulating who they are and what they stand for, and understanding different types of audiences, and that ultimately informs their own stores, it informs their marketing and otherwise. So we provide real-time data to our brands, so you'll see that traffic, you'll see those sales, and you'll be able to break it down by location. But then there's obviously loads of other opportunity that comes with it as well. And so as it pertains to this audience and what we're talking about, you mentioned the marketplace. So we just launched it quietly in the past couple of weeks, and we're really starting the big push on May 1st. But it's sort of our experiment in CPG, where we have fully built out restaurants that are really popular in our respective areas. And for a lot of these direct consumer brands in that sort of CPG space, you can order them and go shop them in a lot of the people on this call, right, that have amazing infrastructure for that. But there's a social component to it that's kind of missing, and be able to socialize it and recontextualize some of these products on a menu and in a well-trafficked space and in and alongside brands like, you know, Aesop and Maud and Leline and Entire World and whoever else, you can foster something that feels very special and really sort of represents those brands in a very different way that's very useful. And so you think about any number of those brands, right? So SKU has sent a few. I think we're launching with roughly 20 brands in that space. And it becomes this real vehicle for us to, yes, sell some products and make it available for local delivery through some platforms that are on this call and otherwise. It also becomes an opportunity for us to think about how we can really play with those and mash them together in a way that would otherwise be seen to be potentially competitive or otherwise, but you can unlock real insight. So, you know, coming back to Stadium Goods, we quickly found, you know, a couple of years ago that people that were shopping with Stadium Goods, which is a streetwear marketplace, that they were also very likely to shop with Primary, which is a very inexpensive kids brand. So it was these sort of hip parents that were coming in and buying like, you know, a pair of Yeezys, and then they would go across the other side of the room and buy a onesie. And that's an adjacency that you would have never otherwise picked up on before for those brands, but yields a tremendous opportunity in terms of their customer acquisition and potential collaborative opportunity and a different way of sort of reframing physical. So yeah, I mean, like to the consumer, you get a space that has like a really great mix of brands. It helps you separate the signal from the noise, operates on a highly curated sort of basis, and it's incredibly localized to you. So it just feels great, and we have a great team. You can shop it online, and otherwise you sort of dictate those terms. To the brands, it's a lot of different things. You're learning a huge amount on a lot of different things and different metrics and different sort of feelings around what you can do to scale elsewhere or with us.
I love it. So any key takeaways you'd want to tell the group about customer trends that you're watching? Are people dying to get back in stores, or are people going to be stuck shopping your curated product selection on the website? Anything interesting?
Yeah, look, I mean, we sort of feared for the worst last year as a predominantly physical retailer, right? And it was certainly challenging. You know, we opened Austin, and as I mentioned, we closed it within 24 hours, all the stores. But digital for us grew over 1,000% year over year, and then all of our stores ended up growing like crazy as well. We saw traffic really come back very quickly upon reopening. Less than what we had seen prior, but conversion was way up. So it was much more of an intentional visit. The other piece that had been obviously really crucial is that for a lot of these brands, they were really struggling with logistics during the pandemic, and still are in many cases. Each of our stores is also a warehouse, right? So the opportunity to buy online, pick up in store, order for same day delivery from all sorts of different brands all in one spot was very, very, very important, and drove really useful behavior. In terms of where we're going, you know, we stayed, you know, relatively quiet. Like historically, we've done a lot of PR and marketing and otherwise all these events. In the back half of last year, we really spent a lot of time just, you know, focusing on, you know, just sort of staying quiet and sort of building a lot of plans for this summer, really, and this opportunity to sort of reintroduce ourselves. And it's sort of proving to be a good plan, where we're seeing right now in the past like 2 or 3 weeks, traffic has been just organically above what we saw in holiday last year. And we're seeing, we think, you know, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, will be rivaling the sort of pre-pandemic period. And so for us now, you know, we have real conviction around the physical piece. Like, it's massively important. People look for that socialized aspect around some of these products, like the look and feel piece, sure, but also if you're buying some of these higher end products and you're looking to see them in a different lens, and you're also not willing to sort of go through all the lengths of really sort of uncovering just the right, you know, product in any given category, but you really sort of defer to more of an editorial perspective, it resonates, right? And then you think of that with a local lens, and it becomes that much more impactful. So we feel very sort of strong about where we're going there. And so we'll probably double the amount of stores we have in the next few months. And lots more from there. But, you know, trends beyond that, like in our CPG thing, we're seeing the mushroom thing for sure. And we have a lot of brands coming to us in that sort of category. So I'll echo that for sure. We're seeing a lot of opportunity, and, you know, like cities that wouldn't be quite as intuitive for a lot of the brands we work with. So, you know, we launched in Plano, so we're not afraid of doing some of these areas that aren't as immediately obvious. But I think our conviction there is that much stronger. But we also have a lot of conviction around major metropolitan markets that have been seen to sort of, like there's been a lot of sort of doomsaying in the media about like what's happening with, you know, cities like LA and New York and otherwise, and we don't really agree. And so just lots of opportunity. But that's really it.
Well, I love it. Thank you so much for your perspective, Matt. And now we're getting some questions bubbling in from the chat. So hopefully we'll have all of the answers for people. And I'm sure dear Marjorie from Mushroom Revival is so happy to hear that everyone's hot on mushrooms right now. Such a great thing for one of our SKU companies from last year. So question on when companies should be reaching out to retailers, and you all might have a different perspective on this. Is it harmful or hurtful to reach out to retailers prior to the product launch? And what is the timeline from initial product launch to products being on shelf? So maybe I'll start with Rovey. You might have a different perspective from an HEB.
Yeah, I mean, product. I literally met with a supplier this morning that's in this situation where they have a great product, great idea, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And me as a sourcing manager, when I present something to to our team and make a decision of whether or not we're going to be interested in, taking a chance on the product and finding a spot for it on the shelf, I need the product to be as retail ready as possible. The biggest mistake I think somebody can make is to start pitching ideas and start and still be working on a lot of the details. The details are what's important, because we get pitched so many products every day, every week, that if you're not ready, if you don't feel you're ready, it's very difficult to just get overlooked. So, I mean, really, it comes down to having your product as retail ready as possible, and then having a plan as far as the business. I never recommend somebody to do, our Quest, going back to Quest suppliers. You should not be wanting to do a product because you're wanting to want to win a contest. You should do this product because it's going to be a business, regardless of whether you're entering in a contest or whether HEB picks you up or any other retailer. Your product, you're seeing an opportunity for this product. You see a market, you have a plan for it, and it should not be about a contest, a competition, or a specific retailer. So having a plan for your product long term is really what you want to have from the get go.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's different for a lot of other people, but for us, that's really what we're looking for.
Well, no, that makes so much sense for HEB. Now, on the flip side, Ashley, you talked about really getting introduced to products from in a really early stage. Could you answer the same question? Maybe two ends of the spectrum on this.
Yeah, for sure. We love to launch new brands on our shelves, so we're a bit more flexible in looking at brands that have not launched yet. I will echo what Ravi said, that you need to be close to ready to launch. I think it can be harmful, for a brand who is looking to win a contest to try to throw something our way that's really not ready for customers to see yet. But I'm happy to take on, there's a brand that we carried back in the day. I tried their samples out of a Ziploc bag, just waiting to see, where they were going. They had packaging ready to show me, in PDF format, which was great. So there was some vision behind it. But we will take on products, a bit earlier in the process. But again, I would love to hear from brands, their longer term plan. We want to make sure that what they're doing, they're able to support the demand that we're trying to drive with inventory in mind. So we're happy to take a look at the process, but we won't launch you until you've got inventory, you've got real packaging. But I love the grittiness of samples when they're not quite ready yet. We're just a different size than HEB.
Right. And I'm sure all of us on this call or on this panel have had quite a few products thrown in our direction. Sometimes I look at my fridge and it's just a bunch of bottles with labels and stickers on them. And then my babysitters get really nervous about what they're about to drink or eat out of it. I'm like, it's okay, I promise. So another question from the audience, and thank you on that one, Ashley, is about bundles and packages. I mean, I know that this is something that GoPuff is offering. As I was just playing around with your website, how do you put together these bundles? Is it something that's being driven from you as a retailer, or are they more companies and products really bringing ideas to you?
You want me to jump in on that one?
Please.
Okay. It can kind of go both ways. There's definitely times where, we look at, maybe we're doing a special, holiday or seasonality, or I think donut days coming up and things like that. We might do some interesting ones related to that. And we'll be proactive in trying to seek brands that are already on our platform or ones we might want to add. But I also know a lot of these emerging brands do collaborations with each other, which is super cool. It might be a co-branded flavor, or I know some ice cream brands have done toppings that are from another emerging brand. So a lot of the times we'll chat with those brands to see if they want to collaborate again and do something on our platform too. And especially with emerging brands, there's so much creativity behind all of that, which is super exciting. So we're open to those conversations for sure. And I think we're going to do more of those kind of bundles and packages in the future. So
I love it. Jeremiah, do you want to weigh in on this? Whether your Whole Foods experience, they always have great bundles and packages. How do you guys think about it at Thrive?
I mean, it just depends on the product opportunity. We're more, I mean, we curate a lot of shopping lists and different group packaged products together based on what we see from our members' kind of purchase history. We're going to be doing more of that. I think the other thing we love to do is, as earlier noted, we're not the size and scale of, the H-E-Bs and some of the brick and mortar players in the world. So if CPG brands have developed their products specifically to go on retail shelves, which is still pretty common, obviously. We love working on custom pack sizes and custom bundles to bring the products, make them more e-commerce friendly, make them more shippable, change up the packaging. In our case, we love sustainability. So we're always looking at how to reduce waste, how to make things more efficient. And the reality for us is like, we don't have shelf space, right? Like we don't have to fit products into a certain set of parameters. So we love disrupting categories that way.
Disruption is the name of the game in this space. So yes, thank you for all of your insights. So I am just paying attention to the time right now. It looks like we might have a few more questions that are coming in. And maybe whoever feels like they're best suited to, raise their hand and answer this one. Quick question on the wellness shots category growing during the pandemic. Is there any additional innovation you see coming into this category? Anyone have strong feelings on this one? All right. We might have to follow up with you on that question if we get some insight into that category. So definitely drop your email address into the chat feature. And if I come across any articles, I'll definitely send it your way. So speaking on 3PL partners, it's getting tougher and tougher to compete with 2-day shipping. Is there any recommendations on 3PL and how these young brands can help solve for that challenge? I feel like Michael from GoPuff might have the best answer when it comes to shipping and making it fast.
Yeah, no, so I'm curious if the question is more for like co-packing and that type of approach.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we're purchasing the items, so I don't necessarily from the GoPuff side if I have expertise on that front, but just from having my own food business previously, I mean, it's a bit of a tough decision for brands I know to try and do it in-house versus go with 3PL, whether it's for co-packing or distribution or what that looks like. I think at some point leveraging existing companies where they have expertise in that scale is definitely something to explore and look at. I really think it's like a timing issue depending on what scale and size and what the distribution is like for your brand, as well as from a team standpoint and a co-founder standpoint, how much time you want to be spending putting your brain power where you're best suited and where you have your best strengths. And if it's not in that area, it might be worth looking at other folks that can support on that front.
I love it. Thank you for weighing in on that one. And I'd actually like to get all of the panelists to answer this next one, just quick little short answer. What marketing and promo tactics are seeing really succeed at driving sales? So Michael, you've got the platform. What are you seeing work?
It really varies. We're definitely testing a lot of stuff too, which is interesting. Like contests seem to work pretty well and get a lot of buzz. Like just doing a promotion, like a typical BOGO or $2 off certainly can attract customers to get eyeballs on your products. But I think to get more buzz going, getting creative, I know that there's more and more working with influencers too. And again, like we were talking before, right? A lot of us are getting ideas and seeing all this stuff on Instagram, and some of that's going to be coming from influencers as well. So that's been a really interesting initiative. And again, it's like, are they just going to mention it, or are you going to do something kind of cool, engaging, and memorable that people are going to share with their friends to kind of get that echo chamber going? So I think the more creative, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Ashley, how about you? What are you seeing from interesting tactics to really drive increases of sales?
Yeah, just to echo, like the creativity piece always drives more sales for us. We don't do a lot of promotions, not a lot of BOGOs or anything like that, but customers really respond to giveaways. We do a lot of that when we're doing, events or opening stores. Another thing that we've seen a lot of success with has just been sample bag drops in our e-commerce business. So we've seen, especially with emerging brands that maybe need a little bit of education, we'll drop an item into the bag with some content explaining what it is and see the sales increase overnight, which is really exciting for the brands that participate.
Absolutely. I love the samples. That's such a great way for me to experience.
Great surprise and delight for sure.
Right, exactly. I didn't even know I needed that, but it just showed up. Jeremiah, how about you? What are you seeing? You're almost the veteran in this e-commerce space when it comes to this. What tactics work well? Overarching, and maybe what are some new ideas or tactics that you're seeing come to fruition right now with emerging brands?
Yeah, no, for us, the biggest thing has been gift with purchase. It's been amazing to watch. And to me, I view that similar to sampling, right? It's just people get to opt in, they get to choose. We see tremendous traction. I think the most surprising element for me with that has been that oftentimes on the days we do a gift with purchase, we see triple-digit sales growth on the product we're giving away, which is just, I don't know, blows my mind. I'm like, wait, you're getting it for free. Why are you buying more? Don't you want to try it? Or so that's really fascinating. And then just the page views and the clicks on the brand that we're giving away that day across their whole brand portfolio on our site also goes up high triple digits, which is really fun to watch. So I think that's probably the biggest one on our side.
I love it. And Rovey, you are probably just the expert in promo strategies and BOGOs and all of that at HEB. Anything new that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, well, you said it. I mean, all the classic, all the hits,
Wait,
right?
sorry, say that again?
The BOGOs and the coupons are always going to do well with the consumer to drive trial. Unfortunately, due to COVID, sampling has always been a huge part of the getting your product out there and getting your product in people's mouths and in front of people's, get their customer to try your product. It's a big part of emerging brands or new brands. And unfortunately, due to COVID, that hasn't been the case. We haven't been able to do that over the last year. But I have been pretty amazed at how creative some of our suppliers have gotten with things like just social media. TikTok, for example, it's huge right now. I mean, I had a product. I think I have a sample here. I used to have a sample. Here it is. A product. I mean, it's not a small emerging brand, but it's a product that I brought in from Mexico. It's a very recognized brand made from De La Rosa candy, which is a very well-known. If you grew up in Mexico in the last 80, 90 years, you ate one of their candies. So, but they made a freezer pop from one of their most popular candies, Pulparindo and Mazapan. And this girl had literally, I think she had like 60 people in her or viewers or subscribers to her channel. She did a 10-second video of her purchasing that. That video got close to 3 million views within 3 days. And when the product literally sold out in 10 days. And initially we were talking about doing pallets, buying pallets, and now we're buying truckloads. But that was a perfect example. And just like that, we've seen some things on Instagram, like I said, other TikToks, some YouTube promotions. And so people are getting out there, getting their product, using some are using influencers, but some are just getting, grabbing their camera, their phone and doing whatever and getting creative and getting their brand to be, go viral, trying to go viral. That's what I was trying to do, right? So, but yeah, I mean, going back to the classic, for our stores, for our customer, they like to go and get the yellow coupons, a huge tool that we use still, the BOGOs, and but Showtime is a big tool that we have at our stores. Unfortunately, again, that's part of the whole COVID restrictions where we can't have product being prepared for customers. So we have to get creative in finding ways to get your word out there.
All right. Well, hey, I love a good TikTok video. So I feel like that was like a new piece of information for me. So thank you all so much for being a part of this panel. Michael, Matt, Rovey, Jeremiah, Ashley, we appreciate all the words of wisdom and insight that you're able to give to this community. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the wonderful Michelle Breyer for the minute we have left on the clock. Michelle, how are you?
I'm doing great. I want to thank everybody here for being a part of our town hall. And I'd like to open it up to all of the people here. We really work hard to kind of bring you town halls that are really relevant to what you're looking for, as you build your businesses. So please, we'd love to get feedback from you and input. Please email me some ideas that you would like to see addressed in future town halls. You can email me at Michelle with 2 L's at SKU.I as in ice cream and S as in what's another food item. Now that I can't think of one. Anyways, S as in Sam. Salad. There you go. Because we really want to continue to, address all the things that you need as you're growing your businesses. But I can't thank you enough, all you panelists. We're getting some comments that this is the best town hall, best Zoom meeting they've ever been to. And I think it's a testament to all the great info that you have provided. So we really appreciate each and every one of you. And all of you for coming. Thank you for taking time off from your day